Here we go.
Okay,
Nice. Hey, Matt.
here we are.
Here we are.
How are you feeling today?
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, it's been a very busy time in Europe so far. We had the Guitar Summit, and then we had a clinic at Session Music in Frankfurt. But then now we travel here, and I had a day off yesterday to go to the Chopin Museum.
Okay.
And just a kind of a more relaxed day. So now refreshed to do some interviews and then do the gig tonight.
So you're in love with Chopin music?
Yes, I mean I've always been aware of certain pieces, but there was a documentary I saw on this woman named Alice Herz Sommer, and she lived in I think it was Warsaw. She was in Poland near the beginning of World War II, and she eventually was taken to Theresienstadt, and was interred there for a while. But she survived by playing these Chopin etudes. And she lived to be 110 years old, by the way, and was just the most wonderful, inspiring spirit. She'd been through this horrible tragedy at that time, but maintained a really optimistic, positive attitude, and played till she was about 110. She just kept playing. So the documentary is called The Lady in Number 6. I highly recommend it. But so I wanted to, I said, so what was it about the Chopin that she was so enamored with that made her learn these etudes? And then I fell in love with Chopin at that point. And I was recognizing things in the way that he wrote, that there was always these moments of complete immersion of the heart and what it made you feel. And I wasn't feeling that really from anybody else. It was extremely special. And so I decided, I started hearing the etudes, and then the preludes, of course. But when I heard the nocturnes, that felt like home for me, I don't understand the polonaises quite as well, and some of the waltzes and sonatas, but I was finding these moments of that I've been trying to do. So I recognized a kindred spirit somehow, and in his the way he thought music and the way he felt music. So now I've been learning little bits that I can, but I just absorb it, and it just So now I have a whole set of solo pieces that I've written based on this feeling. The first one being the song called "Here Lies the Heart," that everybody knows from me performing it on the pedal show, where Dan cried, And the title I got from where his heart is here at the Holy Cross Church. It says, "Here lies the heart of Frédéric Chopin," and it's a beautiful story that when he passed away in 1849 in Paris, his older sister, he made promise to take his heart back to Poland, which was his homeland, and it was always in his heart. So, but listening to that music on a constant basis, it really helped me write some other songs that were of a certain flavor, including the last piece on the record. It's called Nadzieja, which is a Polish term that means hope, correct? If I'm pronouncing that right, Nadzieja. So there's this wonderful classical pianist named Maria João Perez, and as I was in my Chopin, I still am, learning as much as I can, I saw her being interviewed by the Chopin Institute, and she talked about how music and Chopin's music, there's suffering and there's darkness, but there's always this hope. There's always this optimism, And when
describes Poland,
yes,
I think.
So I think so too. And as she was speaking in English, as she's Portuguese, but she's speaking in English, but there was the Polish translation at the bottom of the screen. And when she said hope, I saw the word Nadzieja, and I took it in my heart, and then so I wrote a piece of music, and that'll be the final track on my new record. Is going to be called The Outlier Nocturnes, and
this is a solo project.
It's only just guitar. It'll be this my old trusty Ibanez.
Some loops or only?
No, just pure guitar.
Nice.
Well, I'm also recording another power trio record with the Andy Timmons Band, so plenty of stuff coming for the rock and roll fans. But my favorite quote from Chopin that really resonates with me at this point in my life and career is, the simplicity is the final achievement, and that really holds true. To play simply and have it be effective and simply truly beautiful is really difficult to do right. You know what I mean? And I think we, as guitarists, we get caught up in a lot of there's so much technique available. You know, there's the shreddy and the chops and the vocabulary, but to play a nice simple phrase sometimes can elude many.
Yes.
To really produce a great tone, and I still work on all of it. I love to play simply. I wish I had more chops, you know, but I like the pursuit of that. But you know, music and art, I think, is very selfish if it's done properly, because if I'm thinking about what somebody else wants to hear, or what I think the fans might want, if that's not what's in my heart, then that's being inauthentic. You know what I mean? Or doing something for a commercial reason, which is real common.
The first and the most important listener is you.
You have to please yourself. You have to, and that's why I was talking about earlier about the phrase that I coined called your aurelect, which is the intellect of your ears and your musical memories, and how we're always trying. You know, as an artist myself, I feel like I'm always trying to reach the level of what I love about the Beatles or Chopin or whoever Pat Metheny, whoever my favorite composers and players are. And at some point that becomes you. So, you know, Chopin is very much now in that lexicon of what I love to hear and what I aspire to do. Because, I mean, as a guitarist, and you listen to some Chopin, you realize I got a long way to go. You know, I'm just a beginner. So, but I like that feeling, because if I thought like, oh, okay, I'm the best ever, yeah, great, you know, that's never true, obviously, but it keeps you going in a fashion that, because anybody that's really being honest, most of the great players you'll meet are very humble. You know, I have a dear friend, Eric Johnson, that's, you know, he's a lifelong hero, but I've also gotten to know him as a human being, and he's the sweetest, most humble guy you could ever possibly meet, you know. So meaning that you ask any of these guys at any given moment, oh man, I suck, I got to work harder, you know. And it's every day it's different, you know.
Yes.
You know, tonight will be the most important gig I ever do. It could be 50 people, or tonight it's 250 people, or some bigger gigs, obviously, through the years.
It's always different, but
yeah, you have to put everything. You have to put everything into everything you ever do. There's no sense in doing things that we would say in America half-assed. You know, don't settle. Why should we settle? Yeah. But that's a lot of pressure. But Michael Jordan became the greatest basketball player not because anybody had to tell him to go shoot free throws. That's all he wanted to do, and that was the way for me growing up. The guitar was like just calling me at every moment. I mean, just look at these beautiful instruments. You know, I was attracted to it just as a cult, you know, a cultural icon. And growing up in the '60s, there's all the Beatles and even Herman's Hermits. There was guys playing guitars on the record. I was like, man, I want to be like that guy. You know?
Mm-hmm. So when you realized that you need to focus on yourself more than your skills?
I think it happened. I think it happens naturally. You know, I get asked questions a lot like this, like, when did you make the decision, or what drew you to do this? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember any particular epiphany. I think just the pursuit of improvement and the joy of doing it. At some point, you can't help but somehow become yourself. I can honestly say there's some things I will try to avoid. If I hear myself sounding too much like hero A, B, or C, mm-hmm. you know, maybe I don't want it. That's been done. You know, it can be fun. You know, when I hear, you know, some of my favorite players imitating Jeff Beck, I'm like, I don't think we need that. You know, mm-hmm. and I try to not, you know, not that I could even attempt to do that, but there are certain things that are so iconic that we must learn from them, but then maybe not try to replicate, because we can't be them. You know, we can't be their life experience, their aurelect, their persona, their being, their soul. It can be imitated, but never authentically. You know, we have to be us. So again, there was no specific moment, but I do recognize that if I'm being too much like something else, I will then try to steer away from that. You know, only because I would rather sound like me and not be just an imitation of somebody that I love. You know, let them influence me, but have my own thing. You know.
Back to the Chopin.
Yeah.
Did you know that today is the inauguration?
Yes. I couldn't believe it because I've been seeing. I follow Garrick Olson and Ben Laudy, who are Americans but are Chopin experts, so to speak. So I watch their podcasts and their videos all the time, and I've been hearing the lead up to the great Chopin. It's the competition, I guess.
Yeah, competition.
And then my guest here, Matt, with Meinl Poland, was like, I tried to get tickets, but it's sold out. And I wasn't even cognizant that I was going to be here at the same time. So, but we will go. So we went to the Chopin Museum yesterday. We'll go to Holy Cross tomorrow, and then his childhood home outside of Warsaw. So it's a great time for me to be here now. I've been to Poland maybe 2 other times. But this time with a much more like, okay, I want to soak in all that I can from this. I mean, I just think he's the greatest composer of all time. Nobody affects me like he does. So
The upper structures, emotions. In upper structures, intervals.
Very, very much so. Very much so. Just the right note at the right time that can really draw that emotion out of the piece. It's just incredible what he achieved.
So you. When you find emotion on guitar, you think about intervals, connect intervals with emotion, because I'm a jazz guitar player.
Yeah.
And when I was learning the new stuff, I just start to connect my whole own emotion with this interval.
Okay.
And how do you do?
That's only part of it. Because obviously, intervals matter. If I just think of the key of D major, if I'm in major, it's a bit happier, you know.
Charlie Parker always.
Yeah.
And the phrases on the second interval.
You mean the second of the key? Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if okay, here's Charlie Parker.
Oh, I hate the twist version.
So and I'll eventually. I have a whole record of surf music recorded with a
like
better
the
version of
Dale.
that. Yeah. Anyway, but so I learned a lot from Charlie Parker about. Certainly intervals, but it was the feel. It was how he had dynamics through the line and how he would emphasize certain notes, but also navigating the harmony. So for me, it would be like if I have an A7 chord. I know if I start on that flat 9 or have that kind of resolution, or whatever the intervals might be. But it's also the placement. Emotion very much can come from very specific placement where it's not necessarily
like a context.
Yeah. It's where the note is placed, the actual interval or degree with the harmony that's happening at that time, what that might elicit, or if that's part of what you're trying to convey. And all these aren't conscious thoughts, but there's the art, the instinct that develops over time. But a lot of it coming from jazz for me. I'm always a rock player. The foundation is always there, and have all my favorite rock players. But when I started playing jazz, and you're much more, not obligated, but it's a good idea to really understand how to navigate the harmony. And that's done by knowing the thirds and sevenths and how to flow through chord tones and what's a chord tone, what's not a chord tone. So all those things just combine in the way that I just think and want to hear music. It turns out a lot of my favorite rock players tended to be a bit more on the jazz side, with Steve Lukather being one of probably my biggest influence, and he was influenced by Carlton, that could really navigate, and then going on to Stern and Robin Ford and Pat Metheny, whilst also getting all this rock and roll stuff. But it was the jazz that it still to this day informs. There's a certain swing in a lot of things that I do that isn't necessarily natural to most rock players that only deal with straight eighth notes. But to have that. Thank you for the 2 and 4.
I'm not the metronome.
Feels pretty good to me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, spending a lot of time playing that, but more importantly, listening to that. So not just Charlie Parker, but obviously like Barney Kessel, who swung. He's so great. Kind of more bluesy than bebop, but he played the bebop too.
I like Joe Pass.
Joe Pass is phenomenal. His drive and his eighth notes. But Wes Montgomery, I mean, there was just another level.
That's a vocabulary of jazz guitar, I think.
Well, it's similar, but he was unique in that I felt a lot more improvisation from him than certain guys that had an incredible vocabulary, but you start to recognize, certain phrases, and nothing wrong with that. But guys like Wes or Chet Baker, I felt were more in the moment, and not always restricted to things they already knew. Because I'm speaking to you now, and I'm saying things I've never said before in the same rhythm or the same cadence or the same combination.
This is natural.
And so, a really great improviser will have that same ability to, really in real time think what he's going to say now. It might be a phrase that we all know, or it could be something that they
You know the lick?
What is that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I know there's some phrase. Yeah. And I have played that lick, but it's because it's in there. You know what I'm saying? And it might come out, and I'm never embarrassed to do it. It's like that's what I wanted to hear at the moment. But it's just funny how things get made fun of.
So you make jokes on the stage
With that phrase?
With your musicians. Sometimes when you play, you just
there's always that, and it's not necessarily that particular occasion, but there will be things that I'll quote with only the band in mind. Those kind of moments can happen. If it's just like hanging out with your buddies, you're going to say stuff you might not say anywhere else. You know what I mean? It's just a sense of humor. Yeah, these guys draw it out of me for some reason. But that's the beauty of, and that's reacting authentically in a situation. Different combinations of people will draw different things out of me in my personality. I'm still me, but my nature is to adapt, and not everybody's like that, But I'm going to very much adapt in any musical situation. I'm going to try to play what's right, and I want to resonate with that group of people. I want to still be me, but I also want to do what's appropriate.
That's very nice.
It's a tasteful thing. But it's how I operate in the world, and that's how I'm with. If I'm meeting a stranger or whatever, I know that my actions can affect. I'm aware of what I'm doing and me, but I'm also aware very much of how that might affect the situation or the people that I'm around. So sometimes that's a lot to be aware of. I'm a bit of an empath in a way too. I'm very sensitive to energy. I really feel energy on a deep level. It can be positive, it can be negative, but I can't help it. I've just had this other sense of every situation I'm in, and it can affect how I feel. I'm either comfortable. I'm comfortable right now. It's been an amazing vibe since I walked in here, and that helps me really be more of my natural self, as opposed to being inhibited or, yeah.
So about energy of people, what do you think about the Polish audience?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I've only played maybe only 2 other gigs. I know my trio played here maybe in 2006 or so.
Okay.
And then I did another clinic for Ibanez back in 2018. Okay. But I mean, it was a great vibe. I've had a great energy. But we were discussing about the nature of Polish people, and sometimes it's harder to get the smile maybe from strangers. And after we had this discussion, there was an elderly man here that passed by me, and I greeted him with a smile, and he just kind of looked at me strange, like maybe it's not as
what you are doing.
Yeah, but all the musicians I've run into, it's a different vibe. I see that there's this more friendly approach,
open.
And so every culture has these things that are indicative of sometimes the culture and how they were brought up, but we can always just, I choose kindness and friendliness just because I want to resonate with people, and if I find that they're not feeling the same thing, that's okay. I'm not offended by that at all, but I'm hoping tonight that people are smiling, and I think they will be. I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll be a good vibe, but No, again, it's humbling to be here again because of my fondness and love of Chopin and being in his home country, you know.
So you will be in the next few years again in Poland?
Yes. Whether they invite me or not, I'm coming back. Yeah. No, I hope so. I hope so. You know, now maybe I need to come here to compose some music.
Maybe with Chopin.
Oh, that would be great. Well, I'll play some Chopin tonight. Actually.
Oh,
I will. I've been working on little bits. It's not necessarily easy to figure out how to replicate piano pieces on the guitar, but you can still edit it to the right amount of notes to hopefully authentically replicate some of the things. So and from that I learn, you know. I learn. Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
So maybe right now I can ask you about compositions.
Sure.
How you go to the composition? You just sit on the chair and just hear the inner voice, or maybe you set up the sound at first.
Yeah.
Tune guitar, maybe.
Well, it really happens in so many ways. Sometimes it's just a lot of ideas will come first thing in the day. Like if I just pick up the instrument, that is what I do first thing every day. I get my coffee, of course, and then I'll go to my office and play for at least an hour. A lot of times I'll be either improvising some jazz or depending on the sound that I have up. But I've got a nice couple of Lone Star Special Heads and the Sur IR speaker load, and that goes to my Scarlett into my laptop. So even my office tone is pretty great, you know, a really nice sound. Upstairs in my house is a studio, so when I need the proper cabinets, that's how I do all my recording. But for practicing and for volume, I like the Sur IR boxes.
So you don't you practice always with the amp?
Not necessarily. I mean, I most prefer the feeling of a string when it's just me.
The new strings, yeah.
That's hard to get to come through the amp properly, you know.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So it's I want to work on that I'm working on an amp design right now with a company, so we'll see how close we can get to that. But that being said, you know, with my normal sound is like my Mark III Keeley, you know, slight gain that I use, and then my Halo, which is like a dual echo that gives me this space and sustain without getting in the way. So that's my happy place, and that's where a lot of the nocturnes were written, you know.
So the sound inspired you?
Oh, absolutely. Sound can be very inspiring. Also, just if there's a particular emotion or whatever I'm feeling, a lot of those nocturnes were written, you know, from different depths, we should say. You know, a lot going on in the world that's affecting everybody so deeply. So yeah, that can enter into it quite a bit. But sometimes a riff just happens, and sometimes it's just a riff from the cosmos or wherever. And then I always have, you know, either if I'm practicing, I've got my, you know, Logic that I'll record in. But I'm always, you know, with our phones, I've got the voice memo. So I've got like 1,400 voice memos right now on my phone.
And you back to?
A lot of them are just song ideas, a lick idea. But then it's a matter of choosing, okay, what's standing out, what seems like. I'll listen back to some stuff like, why did I think that was good? That's all, you know, that means nothing to me. But every now and then I'll go back and go, oh yeah, okay, I see. And then I'll see if I can develop that and have it be meaningful in some way. But it goes back to that selfishness of, I think if we're soloing, we're just trying to rise to the level of our favorite soloists. You know, you want to play as great as Lukather or Ace Frehley or Holdsworth, whoever it might be. And we're not those people, but there's a certain bar that gets set, you know, and we're just trying to play either with the technique or with the melodic instinct of our favorite people, and the tone is the same thing. We were talking about tone the other day, and people were saying, well, it comes from the fingers. I disagree with that. I think it comes from the ear. Because you have to have an idea what you're trying to get your fingers to sound like, right? And again, that's the Orlek at work. Sometimes I'm thinking of Stevie Ray or Hendrix. You know, everybody likes that neck pickup kind of mid-gain kind of sound. They set the benchmark of what that can sound like. Or Eric Johnson's clean tone. It's just, you know, magical. Or his lead tone. Or, you know, Lukather on the Hydra record, you know. Les Paul and through Marshalls. And so there's all these iconic tones. And then, you know, we strive for that. But you have to have the idea of what you're going for. Otherwise, the gear and the guitar will dictate it to you, you know, and you're just you're a victim of what you got, you know.
Yeah.
But over time, I think, and the gear does help, obviously, you know, the right guitar, the right amp, if there's some effects, makes a huge difference. But it does have to start with what are you going for? What do you want to sound like? And through that continual effort and gaining of knowledge and experience, more of what you want to hear will come out. You'll get that experience. I can get on any amp, you know, if I've got my pedals, it helps a lot, but I'll dial in something pretty quickly that'll be as close as I can get with the gear that sounds like what I'd like to hear. Now, some people might say that sounds like me, but again, it starts here with what do I want, you know, so.
That's why
the hands learn. Somebody mentioned earlier, the correct word is vessel. We're just kind of a vessel for this musical mind, this, you know, we've got the sound in mind, maybe the notes we like to hear. Now we just have to learn how to do it. You know what I mean? It's, so lots involved, but it does start with the ear, you know?
So the gear, you have some pedals that you take over and over.
Yes, so there would be, there's a few pedals that would be, if I could have these 3 or 4 pedals, I'd be very happy. So that starts with the Keeley Mark III driver. It's my signature. This is going to sound like a commercial, but the reason I'm using these pedals and their signature is because I was directly involved with getting to the core of what I really want. Mm. The first pedal I did with Keeley was the Halo, which is a dual echo. And I had a real fondness of wet guitar sound since I saw her standing there by the Beatles in 1963. But Lukather would always use a good bit of echo. Eric Johnson, for sure, Joe Walsh. But so, you know, I've achieved it in many different ways over the years. But then when I got the Maestro EP3 tape echoes, I used those for a while. Then I tried to replicate those with the Electro Harmonix Memory Man. I'd put 2 of those together to get the 2 different delays feeding into each other. And the Strymon did a really good job. I called it 91%. I could get it close to that. But then I wanted to find somebody that would help me get to the sound that was, again, starting here. I hadn't heard the best of all these things in one that I would like to hear. And Daniel Steinhardt, the guy that designs my gig rig switcher, the G3, said Robert Keeley's the guy. And so I met Robert, and once we started, it took a year and a half of going back and forth. We lived 3 hours from each other, so we go to each other's studios and tweak things until it beat everything. It's like, okay, this is now the ultimate iteration of this echo. And if you know my playing, it's like the echo's never off. It's just, it's part of my sound. So that needs to be there. The Mark III driver I use for my kind of delicate, broken up, cleanish tones. And then of course JHS makes my, it's called the AT pedal, which when you hear me with lots of gain, it's my high gain lead sound. So if I had those 3 pedals and just a good clean amp that's a pedal platform, I you know, well known to be using the Lone Star since 2005. They stopped making it 5 or 6 years ago, but I'm collaborating with a very well-known amp builder that's gonna collaborate with me to get the ultimate, you know, I'm going to call it a pedal platform for now. There'll be other versions that may have lead channels and whatnot, but I just want to get exactly what I'm looking for. And then again, like you're saying, the music starts selfishly. All these pieces of gear were like, this is just what I need. You know, I'm not thinking commercially or like, gosh, I hope this sells a bunch of pedals. It just has to be what's going to help me express musically what I want to express. Now the Halo has gone on to be really, really popular, you know, and humbly, you know, a lot of players have resonated with it. Steve Lukather has it on his board, you know, and guys like Bob Weir from Grateful Dead, or, you know, so many of my heroes are actually using the pedals. Like, wow, I never could have dreamed that. But again, it was authentic because it's just what I wanted to hear, and then other people liked it, so that's freaking great. You know? What an honor, though. That's just incredible. Yeah.
So maybe at the end, maybe you will say something to the Polish guitarist.
Sure.
What you will be.
The best advice is just to keep going. You know, there's no shortcuts, but if you love it enough, you're going to keep doing it, and then you're going to get better to that pursuit. That's a very general thing to say, but always remember why you're playing, you know. And for me, it's just, I'm such a fan. I'm just such a fan of music. I'm a fan of the guitar and all the guitar players that are such big heroes. But there are no shortcuts, you know. I'm glad you're watching this video, but maybe watch a few less videos and play more guitar. It's all about fingers on the frets. There's something very much true about the 10,000 hour, you know, myth or rule or whatever. And it's the people that spend the most time, and there's more and more efficient ways of doing it, but I didn't have an efficient way when I was a kid. I didn't have a teacher till I was 16, but I just always wanted to play. And so by just the pursuit of doing it and learning songs, using your ear, because I always, you know, there were no videos, there was barely any books. And I had to put the needle on the record and keep trying. And that's the key. We want to get the visual, you know, it's nice to have the YouTube tutorials and whatnot, but music goes in much deeper when it's only your ears. If you only have your ears, and there's plenty of great transcribing tools. I love the app, the Transcribe app, where you can slow things down and the pitch remains the same. It's so beneficial, but try with your ear first. And if you can't figure out the Yngwie or Steve Vai, then go to the transcription. But the more you internalize here, because music is an oral experience, it's not visual. So if I'm reading music, I can play it, but I may never memorize it because I used my eyes. I didn't use my ears. So that's a lot, but that is kind of the core.
So use more ears.
Oh, your ear is the most valuable tool as a musician. You have to recognize what it is you're doing, but you have to also recognize what everything else is, and whether you just turn off or turn up or just a little bit. Knowing musically what to do, knowing texturally what's appropriate. Yes, the ear is everything.
It's all about oral act.
So what?
It's all about oral act.
I'm hearing whispering. It's all about the oral act. Well, that is the oral act does enter into it, but yeah, we gotta make that connection between the ear or the oral act and the physicality of then expressing. You know, so the more you do it, the more able you will be to get to that level, right?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
For the interview.
That's all I got, Matt.
Thanks.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję.
Yeah. Woo! Thank you.